So this keynote I'm going to kick off on is kind of giving a broad overview in terms of what we're doing with Azure, some of the great work that's come out over the last few months, including a bunch of announcements that we made just yesterday that we'll be able to talk about for the first time as well. And the title of my talk overall is kind of the Cloud for Modern Business, which is part of kind of a broader effort that we're leading across Microsoft to kind of transform our company to be a mobile-first, cloud-first company that really embraces the new worlds and the new trends that are happening out there in the industry. And where Azure fits into that world is that it's Microsoft's cloud computing platform. And it basically provides a rich cloud infrastructure that runs all over the world. And one of the things that's great about it is it allows customers to take the best of infrastructure as a service capabilities. We deliver rich services for both Windows and Linux, as well as the best of our platform as a service capabilities, including higher level services like machine learning, database as a service, and mobile backends. And it allows you to use them together. It allows you to take the best of the Windows ecosystem and the best of the Linux ecosystem and use them together. And combined, they really provide sort of unparalleled productivity, and we think Azure really enables you to build better solutions faster than on any other approach. We've been hard at work at Azure for a couple years now, and in particular the last 2 years, you've seen a tremendous amount of features come out in terms of overall adoption. This slide here just has a few of the more than 300 features and services that we've shipped over this past year, and we're on a continual cadence of releasing, sometimes usually daily, new features and updates to the live service. And I think this sort of innovation means that it's really fun as a developer because you're always learning new things. It also makes events like today with Azure Conf useful because it gives you an opportunity to actually learn how to master those new things within your own projects. Not only are we coming out with a bunch of infrastructure capabilities, some new ones I'll talk about even today, but we're also investing very heavily in higher level services as well. As I mentioned earlier, things like machine learning, mobile backends, database as a service, and other analytics capabilities. And this combination, again, of being able to use both core infrastructure plus all these higher level features really enables a very powerful platform. And as we're going to build out this vision, in particular over the last year or two, we're seeing some tremendous adoption of Azure itself. We now have more than 10,000 new customers signing up to Azure every single week. There's more than 1.2 million SQL databases now hosted inside Azure. We have more than 30 trillion objects stored in the Azure storage system. We've got more than 350 million users of Azure Active Directory, which is our cloud-based identity service, and we're processing more than 18 billion authentications per week now. We've got more than 2 million developers registered for a Visual Studio Online service, which is a service we launched just last November. And what's nice is we have more than, not only do we have all these great capabilities and all this rich infrastructure, but more than 60% of our Azure customers now are also using some of those higher level, at least one of those higher level services as well, which is adding even more richness in terms of the applications they build. Now, the cloud space is red hot right now, and so if you turn on the news and it's cloud, cloud, cloud everywhere. And what I wanted to do is just spend a little bit of time kicking off the morning talking about how we differentiate with Azure, not just on an individual feature level, but from a core capability perspective, and how our kind of focus on that going forward is going to lead to even more investments. And the circles I often draw up for customers when they ask, how is Azure different, are these three overlapping circles of capability I have here on the slide, which is basically hyperscale, enterprise grade, and hybrid. The Microsoft Cloud is the only cloud that combines all three capabilities, and together they provide something really unique that we think is great for anyone looking to power their business. So let's drill into each one of these a little bit. So one of the characteristics of a hyperscale-based cloud is the ability to run your applications and your code anywhere. And this map here on the slide with the green circles represents all of the regions we've now built out with Azure where you can go ahead and deploy and run your code. And so each of those little green regions represents what we call a data center region, where we typically have not just one, but often up to 16 data centers co-located together very closely. And that's a place when you go into the Azure portal that you can go ahead and deploy and run your applications. just next week, in fact, later tonight, I hop on a plane to Australia, and we're going to be officially opening up our 2 new Australian regions next week at TechEd, Australia, which are in the Sydney and Melbourne area. And that's actually going to bring the total number of regions we have open for business around the world with Azure up to 19 as of this month. We've also announced expansion plans in India recently, and so we're building out our regions inside India as well. And you're going to see even more green circles on this map going forward over the next couple months and years. And this ability to really kind of deploy your applications anywhere is super powerful because it means that you can basically reach a global audience and you have the flexibility to literally run your application anywhere. Now, what makes our regions in Azure, I think, even more impressive is not just the number of them and the fact that they're geographically distributed, but also the sheer size of each one of these regions. Our data center buildings within Azure, the new ones that we build, are roughly a football field in size. And so you could actually park 2 jumbo jet aircraft in each of our data center buildings. It's a feature we try not to use very often, but you could if you wanted to, including all the passengers. And what's impressive, again, is each region can have up to 16 of these data center buildings located together. And that's enough capacity that you could actually host 600,000 servers in one spot. And again, remember, we have 19 of these regions now open for business around the world. So it's a pretty unprecedented amount of scale. And it gives you the flexibility to, again, deploy your applications anywhere, but also have the confidence to know that you can scale up or scale down your capacity to meet pretty much any business need. Let me talk about a few customers that are using Azure today, and in particular taking advantage of this hyperscale capability. And I think, sometimes when I talk to, especially enterprise customers, they'll often say, okay, this sounds awesome, but how would I use it? Because we don't have that many servers around today. And one of the things that I think as you approach the cloud space and as you think about the cloud is to start thinking not just about what you do today, but what are those applications that your company or your startup is going to basically build in the future, and how can you take advantage of this new capability and really redesign your business as well as your architecture to take advantage of it. And I have a couple examples here I just wanted to walk through in terms of 3 companies that are using Azure today to do that. The first is Milliman. They're one of the world's largest actuarial companies that provide actuarial services to companies that do things like life insurance. And they've been a partner of ours and a customer of ours on Azure for quite a while. And they've built up one of the leading actuarial SaaS-based applications, an application called Integrate, that provides a bunch of financial services and actuarial services to life insurance companies. And what's impressive about their application is they can spin up between 50 and 50,000 cores of compute for each of their customers. And they can basically scale up and scale down dynamically. And so when one of their customers needs to understand what's their risk portfolio or what's their current portfolio situation, Milliman can basically take their job, scale it anywhere around the world, and be able to do immense amounts of number crunching on top of that data. And this is allowing them to provide even more competitive services in the very competitive and very regulated insurance market and really be able to grow their business in a tremendous fashion. It's a great application. One of the things I was meeting with some of the Milliman developers last week, and one of the things they said I think was really nice was they've never had to turn away a customer because they didn't have capacity or because they couldn't do a rush job that was submitted or requested by them. And that's part of what the power of an elastic cloud gives you. AccuWeather, it might be a name that some people recognize. It's one of the world's leading weather services around, and it basically provides weather forecasting as weather detail services around the world. They used to be on AWS, the Amazon cloud, and ported to Azure, and now process more than 6 billion data requests each day using our backend. And it's a great example, and they do not only weather forecasting, but basically power the back end for their iOS, Android, and Windows clients as well, all using Azure. And then Heineken, which other people might recognize, is using Azure for some of their social marketing, and in particular some of their Facebook campaigns that they're running on the web. An example of that would be a UEFA game they did where they had millions of simultaneous people, all basically playing the game through Facebook as part of a viral campaign. And one of the things they like about the cloud and they like about Azure is they're able to spin up the capacity that they need when they're doing an online campaign or our online marketing campaign. And then they can turn it off as the campaign drops down. And the beauty about the cloud is they only pay for what they use. And so if the campaign isn't active or isn't successful, they're not actually out of pocket in terms of any infrastructure. And because there's no upfront costs, it's super cost effective for them to go ahead and transform their business. So just 3 examples, whether it's transforming new services and providing new financial services, whether it's powering a back end for mobile devices or for a client-based device, or whether it's doing a social marketing campaign. The cloud's perfect for that, and that hyperscale advantage is something key that you want to be able to take advantage of. Now, ultimately, we think there's going to be 3 cloud providers in the world that really deliver hyperscale. That's basically Microsoft, Amazon, and Google. And we look to basically differentiate versus the other 2 with the level of enterprise-grade support and services we provide, as well as our hybrid capabilities. And we think we're really unique in that we're the only one that does all 3. Let's talk a little bit about enterprise grade. One of the things for people might have heard the expression Gartner. They're one of the leading analyst firms that IT takes advantage of, and they do something called the Magic Quadrant Survey, which is a fairly coveted position to be in if you're in the leader quadrant, which is at the top right of Gartner. Basically a testament to kind of your quality and your vision and your execution. And so organizations really try hard to get into that quadrant. They have 4 Magic Quadrant surveys, one for infrastructure, one for applications, one for storage, and one for virtualization. And one of the things that's nice about Microsoft is we're the only vendor that's a leader in all 4 of the Magic Quadrants. And I think that's sort of a nice independent attestment to the level of support we provide and the breadth of capabilities we deliver. And it's something that we work hard on, not just to win in the survey, but to be able to deliver that level of enterprise-grade support to you. One of the things that we did recently, last month, was unveil a new set of hardware and a new set of virtual machine sizes that you can take advantage of within Azure. We call this our D family of virtual machines. These are new VMs that have 60% faster CPUs. They support more memory configurations, including higher memory to CPU core ratios. And they also introduced local SSD storage for the very first time and allow you to take advantage of that as well. Enables you to kind of power even bigger applications and run more performantly. One of the things we announced this week, and we're very excited about, is now our G family of VMs that we're introducing this fall as well. And G was codenamed for Godzilla, so that's partly why we call it the G family, in case you're wondering why Godzilla is in the middle of that PC. And basically, the G family complements the D family and is particularly optimized for database and data workloads. And so it has a much, much higher set of memory and a lot more local SSD storage space. In fact, we use the latest generation Intel Xeon processors, the Haswell family. I think we're actually the first cloud provider now to actually launch them in production. And we support up to 32 dedicated cores, so you get the full core. You don't have to worry about any other tenant on it. Up to 450 gigabytes of RAM in those VM sizes, and up to 6.5 terabytes of local SSD. So they're real monsters of machines. They let you do an immense amount of data processing on them, and they allow you to run even larger workloads that you couldn't before. In fact, these are the largest virtual machines of any cloud provider now in the public cloud. They have 2 times the memory of the largest AWS VM instance, and more than 4 times the memory of the largest Google instance. And so this gives you kind of another option that you can use as you build your applications and enable you to kind of run even larger applications than before. The other thing that we announced this week that we're really excited about is our new Azure Premium Storage offering. This is an offering that you can use both with the D series of VMs as well as the G series of VMs. And it allows you to take advantage of up to 32 terabytes of disk storage for your virtual machine. So you can basically mount the storage just like you do today as drives, but you can now do up to 32 terabytes per VM, which is an awful lot. There's also much smaller options that you can take advantage of. What's nice is these Disks are all backed by SSD drives inside our Azure storage system, and they support up to 50,000 IOPS of disk access. Put that in perspective, the typical drive today is about up to 500 IOPS, so it's almost 100x faster in terms of capability. And we provision it in a way so that you get dedicated capacity on that storage system, so you don't have to worry about any other tenants on the storage system impacting your performance. And we support very fast read and write access to the storage system. Reads in particular, we actually are supporting less than 1 millisecond read latency as part of this. And we think this is sort of screaming access in terms of storage and really allow you to power the next generation set of workloads. This type of capability also, combined with our new VM machines, also allows you to run more legacy applications in the cloud as well. In fact, a lot of systems, even ones that are only run on bare metal today and are non-virtualized, this provides enough compute and enough storage capacity that you can now run them not only virtualized, but virtualized inside the cloud. And we think it's going to open up much more possibilities in terms of the types of applications and workloads you can use. One of the things we announced on our blog yesterday as part of this offering is that we're also certifying for the first time both all of the Dynamics suites, the Microsoft Dynamics products, as well as Exchange Server to actually run on top of this hardware. And there's enough I/O and enough performance to run both of them quite comfortably. And we expect to see even more applications, both from Microsoft as well as many, many other vendors, be able to be certified for this as well. Really opens up a ton of new possibilities. So let's talk about just a couple customers that are taking advantage of this type of enterprise-grade support, both in terms of performance, in terms of compliance, in terms of security. One of them is GE Healthcare, who's a well-known name. And they basically allow their customers to collect, store, and analyze healthcare data. And they're taking advantage of Azure and for a very heavily regulated environment in order to actually build some really great healthcare systems. First American Financial is a large company that does title insurance as well as financial processing for mortgage transactions. They're partnering with a company called DataStack, which is a leading startup that provides Cassandra-based storage services. And they're actually storing title documents in Azure. And ultimately, they're going to store up to 16 billion of these housing documents, also in a very regulated industry. And they're able to kind of transform their business and provide a much more valuable set of services to their customers. And then Takanaka is one of the largest construction companies in Japan. And they also provide general contracting services for a lot of the high-rise buildings that you see in Tokyo and other cities. And one of the things that they're doing is actually transforming a lot of their operations to be Internet of Things driven. And so they're using Azure to store a whole bunch of IoT sensors from their buildings. And then they're running machine learning algorithms using the Azure Machine Learning Service on top of them in order to operate and run their facilities even better. And so just three great examples, I think, in terms of how people are taking advantage and using the cloud and some of the interesting use cases that our enterprise-grade support enables. And then the last kind of pillar of this sort of circle is what we call hybrid. And we're unique amongst the hyperscale cloud providers in that we're the only provider that not only has a public cloud where we run the data centers and we put our software, but we also allow you to take our software and run it within your own data centers or within your own servers as well. And that ability to kind of span across cloud as well as on-premises environments or service provider environments, we think is really powerful and gives you maximum flexibility in terms of how you build and architect your solutions. One of the things we try to do is enable every on-premises server to easily connect to the cloud. And so we provide a variety of storage, backup, disaster recovery, identity service, as well as networking capabilities that you can take advantage of so that if you have any on-premises environment, whether it's Windows Server or Linux-based, whether it's Hyper-V or VMware, you can basically now seamlessly connect that environment and use the cloud. And we have a variety of software solutions as well as hardware appliances that enable you to do that. We also are focusing on enabling a consistent cloud architecture that you can use not only in the cloud, but also on top of, to run applications on top of your own premise infrastructure as well. And one of the things that this gives you is the ability for you to go ahead and write to a common cloud architecture and have the flexibility to deploy it immediately on top of your on-premises systems, but then know that you can also run them inside our data centers in the future as well. And we've done this in the past with something we call the Azure Pack, which is a software package that you can download and install on top of your own Windows Server and System Center environment. One of the things that we announced yesterday is we're going even further and also supporting something we call the Cloud Platform System, which is actually a hardware appliance that integrates not only the Azure Pack and our software, but also certified hardware as well into one solution that's fully tested end-to-end that you can basically easily deploy and stand up. And basically the Cloud Platform System allows you to bring Azure into your data center. As I mentioned, it's a fully integrated hardware and software solution. Even things like load balancers and networking is all built into the appliance and fully tested with full performance studies provided. So you can literally call Dell, have them come, they can install a full rack of capacity or multiple racks if you want it in your system. And then when they leave, a short time later, you've got a full private cloud environment within your data center. And one of the things we think this really allows is for customers to adopt the cloud immediately, but with even greater control. And again, start to write for that cloud design footprint, but know that it'll work not only in their data center, but ultimately they can leverage our data centers as well if they want to. Let's talk about a couple customers taking advantage of this hybrid capability today. First one here is a well-known name in the U.S. and in particular in the government called General Dynamics. And they are responsible for some of the most secure government and defense systems in the United States. And so one of the things they want is to maintain that type of control, as they build out their cloud and make sure they have the ability to run any project and have full control over it. And they've actually been an early user of our Cloud Platform System preview, and they're looking to be able to use this to basically bid on every single government contract and run it, again, top security clearance inside their own data center and be able to kind of take advantage of it. The other two here, Lufthansa and Mazda, are great examples where they're actually taking our hybrid software services and connecting them to the cloud. And so they're using their existing servers and their existing facilities to do that. And both of them, for example, use Azure for disaster recovery. So if they've got their existing database systems or their existing storage systems inside their data center, they want to make sure that in the event of a natural disaster that takes out their data center, they can continue operations. And they're doing that both for base storage, but also for higher level things like SQL Server and their OLTP applications that they run in-house as well. In fact, I think Mazda basically, in part of the case study published, they said they saved their data protection costs went down by over 95% once they implemented their Azure solution. Just a few examples in terms of people taking advantage of hybrid. So we think, hyperscale, enterprise-grade hybrid, the Microsoft Cloud and Microsoft are the only cloud provider that does all three. And together they really enable a differentiated story that we think is perfect for any business. Now this story really lights up when you have great applications running on top of it. And so one of the things that we're also hard at work on is enabling both existing applications, but also the development of next generation applications as well. And that's part of our core focus. And in fact, I think most of the talks today are going to focus with a slight developer bent in terms of how you take advantage of this cloud and build those types of applications. And there's a wide variety of work that we're doing. We're doing lots of work, and we have done a lot of work over the last year with Visual Studio, as well as our Visual Studio Online service, which provides a set of developer SaaS-based services hosted inside Azure that you can use to build and run any type of application.